here from downtown-ish Boise. Just sort of an impromptu thing. I just watched Fantastic Four: First Steps, and I gotta say I was very impressed. I feel like we're going in. I feel like Marvel's going in the right direction. We're going into a new era. We are definitely going into a new era of the MCU. And quite frankly, I'm looking forward to it. I watched Superman a couple of weeks ago. I liked it. I liked that it was it's funny because in a way, it's like Marvel and DC have sort of flipped. And Marvel is now suddenly the more serious franchise, and DC under the helm of James Gunn is suddenly the more jokey, slightly more comedic, campy comic book franchise. And I gotta be honest, I am actually enjoying this. I'm hoping that this is a sign of things to come. I watched Thunderbolts quite a while ago now. I haven't commented on it, but I enjoyed Thunderbolts for what it was. But it was also kind of really a mid-tier. It was like really a mid-film. And it's been crazy. It's really been crazy watching the reaction just to the box office of Superman, Fantastic Four. Superman, going... Realizing that we are in a different era, so like box office numbers are going to be down a little bit, but the reality is Superman is a very much above average box office. It had a very above average opening, and when you have certain people going on and like trying to argue that it was a mid box office opening, now that's not subjective. That's objectively false. It's objectively false. Superman had an above average opening weekend. I honestly, at the end of the day, I don't really care about the numbers so much as I care, do we have an interesting story? Do we have a good story? And the reality is Superman was a good story, and it was a Superman story. After watching Fantastic Four, I have to say, though, I think that the Superman sort of missed a step, because Fantastic Four does an excellent job. It's interesting. It is very interesting because what we have are two franchises that are essentially the number one franchise in these companies' like repertoire. It might be easily forgotten that Fantastic Four was the premier first franchise of the Marvel. Spider-Man, the X-Men sort of took them in the 90s as a franchise, and they never really got a full film treatment. And they were passed on to franchise, for the 20th Century Fox. They never really got the full treatment. Spider-Man was that secondary, that like killer app for Marvel, and they were taken by Sony, and that was an incredible series. X-Men was what blew it out of the park, and that was the third Marvel property. When the MCU got started, they had nothing but B characters to start with. Iron Man, Captain America, everything that became the Avengers, that was the C-level Marvel properties, and they made that into the A team. And I think people often forget that. Fantastic Four never really got the cinematic treatment they deserved. To be honest, I'll be honest, I was never a huge Fantastic Four fan. I was a Spider-Man fan. Spider-Man, which carried Marvel comics through the 90s, 2000s. But the Fantastic Four, they were the premier property that started it all. Even in Spider-Man's first run, like early on, he ran in with the Fantastic Four. It was an important property for Marvel, and they gave it up. They eventually got it back, but it was an important part of their repertoire. When you compare Marvel to DC, and you realize that DC really is a shallow company comparison. Like, they have their Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman. You got Flash, Green Lantern, that Aquaman, that kind of crap. But that's like, it's still all like sort of B-level. Superman and Batman are the bread and butter of DC. If you don't have them, that's nothing. And Marvel has always been a much deeper roster. X-Men is a property which is like the third franchise after Spider-Man and Fantastic Four. It's the third franchise that has any like importance, and yet they were able to carry an entire franchise, a film franchise of like over 10 films on their own back, just on that franchise. Spider-Man, which is the second, really, in the comic book universe, the second franchise, but in many ways the premier Marvel franchise, not owned in the film universe, not owned by Marvel, not owned by Disney, and they have an entire universe that they're able to carry over on the back of that franchise. Oh, hello. Hello in the chat. Real West Man. Oh, shoot. No! Hell no. No. Great. Anyway, so, as I was saying, Fantastic Four did an excellent job of bringing things back, centering it again, focusing it onto like what would be just the new, like a reboot of the franchise. And it's the perfect place to do it. Now, I know I've heard a lot of people online, a lot of the clattering class. Get out of here. LMAX, get out of here. Okay, so we got, bot in the chat removed, but it's one of those things. It's like as a reboot to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the franchise, it's a good start. I really do think we're getting somewhere. And Superman, I felt it was a definite tone shift for what DC has been doing recently. A more optimistic positive approach, like less dark. And I think that's the right direction for DC to go. Whereas Marvel, they've been going in a slightly more serious, just tone down the camp. And that's actually the best direction they can go right now. It is interesting because I think Fantastic Four and Superman, those are like the premier franchises. So we're in a spot which is good. It's like where they could have been if they hadn't licensed out these properties earlier. And I kind of wish we'd gotten here earlier, but the reality is I think it's better since they waited. There's a lot of people that have been criticizing, like in the critic sphere, that have been wanting to criticize all of these films. And like, I think there's a contradictory sort of message that they have, which is like, number one, all we've had is crap for a long time. At the same and that we need to slow down and take some time and build story. And at the same time, they're saying, come on, why haven't we had this or that? Why haven't we had an X-Men movie? Why haven't we had a Fantastic Four movie? And I realized, having watched this film, I'm thinking they took the time. And it's a little contradictory to say, well, why don't they do this? And then, why don't they take time for the property? I think they really need to slow down, build, develop what they're going to do going forward. And I think they've got a very good start on that. They've got a very good start, and I'm looking forward to what they have in the future. With Marvel, it seems like they've taken sort of a Fantastic Four is a good lesson in, like, they've gone into like the period piece motif, and they've gotten very much into building one movie, one film to build the franchise and to build it up in another universe. There's sort of the false start that they were gonna move the Earth into another universe and that would be a different thing, and they didn't actually do that. Like, that is something that is going to be potentially moved forward in Doomsday or in Secret Wars, whatever they do with that. But as it stands now, this is its own universe, which is actually kind of refreshing in a way. It is far removed from everything else we've had in the MCU. And it's a period piece, so it's 1960s alternate universe. It feels like we can go anywhere from here. So just for a second, we're going to go back, talk about how this compares with Superman. So what they did with Superman is they started with an intro, and they had like just a clip, just a few sentences to tell you where we've been, how we've got here, and now boom, no origin story. And that's what both of these movies had in common, is that there is no origin. With Superman, they had one set of text where they described, okay, this is what happened over the last 3 years, 300 years, 3 years, 3 months. Boom, let's get in. Let's not worry. Let's not get caught up in an origin story. Let's figure out where we are and let's go with it. And Fantastic Four did a lot of the same thing. They set up that there had been 4 years, Fantastic Four. 4 years they've been around, they've had an origin. Okay, that's done. Let's get past that. Now, where are we? And one thing I can say with this film, which is that I really enjoyed about this movie, the characters were all developed. They're who they are. There were character arcs, but most importantly, is there was no plot convenience. So much of what, like, for example, the Jurassic Park movie, Jurassic World Rebirth. they did this bizarre thing. They did this bizarre thing where every time there's like a dinosaur going after them and it's starting to do a thing, and there's a callback to a previous film. There's some sort of like reference, like the kitchen in Jurassic Park 1. There's the T-Rex chasing the guy, throwing around the flare. They're all just sort of like nostalgia bait. And at the end, when they get to sort of the end of the sequence, there's no resolution. The dinosaur just sort of disappears. They just go away for no apparent reason. But in this, the remarkable, to me, the most remarkable thing about Fantastic Four is that you're going back and watching the Star Wars prequels, right? The sequels. Every time there's some sort of like problem, it gets solved just by convenience, right? Finn meets Rey, boom. They run into the Millennium Falcon, boom. Millennium Falcon, they get Han Solo and Chewbacca, boom. Everything is so convenient. Rise of Skywalker, they got the sword, they happen to be standing in just the right place to see the location of the Star Destroyer, blah, blah, blah. Location of everything, boom. Plot convenience. In Fantastic Four, the most remarkable thing in the modern film era is how everything is earned. Every plot element is earned. They start out with one idea of how they might deal with Galactus. They need to gather more information. They go out. It doesn't work out. They screw up. They have to come back. They set up a plan so that they don't have to deal with the plot spoiler element, the thing that they have to do to sacrifice. So they find a way around that. They come up with this great technological thing everybody has to sacrifice to get to that point, but it doesn't work. They fail. So they have to fight. They come up with the alternative. At the end of the day, they just make it. There's just a mount, and even at the end, they sort of fail, and they get the help from that was developed earlier on by another character. They got it. They built it. They earned it. And they win, not by plot convenience, but by calculation, by planning, and by a little bit of luck and a little bit of help. And it's a perfect way of developing these films that hasn't been done in a while. And frankly, something that I'm glad they started. I'm really hoping going forward that it develops in this direction. So overall, got 2 people watching, 1 like, thank you. Overall, I was really happy with the Fantastic Four. Superman, I liked it. I feel like it was half a James Gunn movie, half is like, it's Superman, we got to create a world. It did what it did, but Fantastic Four was like, it kind of blew me away as far as like, it did what it needed to do. It doesn't matter what the box office is. At this point, it doesn't really matter what the box office is. It's what will be projected going forward. The box office, to be honest, a lot of the worst films have had the best box office, and it's because of what preceded it. Spider-Man 3 was the best performing of the Sam Raimi trilogy, if I remember correctly. It was an insane quality. It was the worst of the 3. But because of the takeaway from Spider-Man 2, which, was pretty good, it led a lot into what would become the best of the Sam Raimi box office was Spider-Man 3. And that's not the most commercially successful. I like the film, and I think there's a lot, if you view it as a story from Mary Jane's perspective, there's a lot going for it. It's not the best. It's definitely not the best take on Venom. Sam Raimi was not a huge fan of Venom, so you can see that going in. But it did what it did, decent. It did what it did. Not enough to justify a sequel, but it made a lot of money. It made a lot of money because of Venom, the promise. That trailer, I watched like a million times. The trailer really pumped up that movie far beyond what it actually was, Spider-Man 3. But, yeah. Anyway, I think it's a good start for what's going forward. Superman, the more I think of it, DC, I don't know, DC has always been weaker, in my opinion, to Marvel. Marvel has so much depth in that it has the fact that the MCU could start on what were basically C-list characters in the Marvel Universe with the Avengers, Iron Man, Captain America, Thor. They could create an entire film universe when all of their top properties were already taken by were already licensed off and owned by other properties. It's kind of amazing. And I really think it's a promising start for what's to come. They still don't have Superman, and that'll be a problem going forward. But hopefully they'll be able to address. There's a lot going on, and I'm really hoping Marvel is going to be able to pull it out. DC is more of a difficult situation because they have Superman and Batman and maybe Wonder Woman. They can throw in the Flash, Green Lantern, but otherwise they're pretty weak in comparison. Like, DC is all about gods and the humans, whereas Marvel very much built itself on characters with godlike powers, but human characteristics, human weaknesses. All of their primary characters have this humanity behind them, along with a slight godlike essence that makes them more relatable and also more believable. And which is why you can take the C-list characters and create an entire film franchise off of what are basically the offshoots, the droppings of the Marvel Universe. And whereas DC, you got their premier characters, and the best you can do is a J-League. And even then it's kind of weak. But DC relies so much on the God versus man, Batman, man at its premier, right? Technology, wealth, being able to take that and to use that for a specific purpose. And then the gods, right? The godlike characters, Superman, Wonder Woman. There really is not much in between. Whereas Marvel has always benefited from being able to ride that line of the relatable human characters with slight superpower elements that in a specific way create a character that's relatable and also aspirational in a way that DC never could. And I'll be honest, I've never really been a huge fan of Superman as a character, but I like what they've done, and I think James Gunn was actually a good choice to create a new tone for the franchise, which was desperately in need of something to make it fresher and more exciting, more to like inject a little bit of personality into a franchise that quite frankly has been getting kind of stale. And like, I'll be honest, Man of Steel, I liked Man of Steel, apart from the death of Pa Kent, because that was insane, retarded. I liked the grounding of it. Um, I liked Smallville in the fact that it limited the whole aspect of the secret identity, gotta hide your secret identity aspect, which I think lends a little realism to a series where a character very clearly is identifiable, and yet nobody knows that he's actually Superman. You know, he's a celebrity. He's a celebrity journalist, but nobody actually puts two and two together that he's also the celebrity superhero. Anyway, I think I think we're going in a good direction. I haven't been a huge fan of Marvel in the last few years. They definitely haven't been going anywhere near where they need to go, but I'll be honest, I think I'm satisfied. I'm happy. I feel like for the first time in a long time, I'm actually not only enjoying the movie for what it is, but like looking forward to what is to come out of this. And if it leads to something good, then that's great. Superman, I think Superman has a much harder hill to climb because there's a lot less going for the DCU. Like, there's a lot less going. You really have to build up Superman as the positive force for, like, positivity. And then Batman is sort of that he's become a slightly nihilistic character, but originally he was like, oh, I gotta protect people, like, so no one has to experience what I experience. But it's a difficult balance to keep, and I think the MCU has a lot more going for it, just because it has a lot more reserve. It's got a lot more in the banks to, like, bank on. At the end of the day, you got Deadpool and Wolverine and all of the X-Men, Fantastic Four, Spider-Man, Sony. The fact that Sony has been able to create and foster a universe, which, albeit is not great, and I haven't seen Madam Web, but they've been able to create a universe based around Spider-Man without Spider-Man that isn't that bad. From 90s superhero movie standards, I haven't seen Madam Web, but Craven was a decent film. Morbius was a decent film from, like, a 90s comic book perspective. It was a decent film. The Venom movies, I haven't been a huge fan of. They've had that campy quality. They've done what they've done. Whatever. Venom 2 is probably the most hated. Honestly, looking back, I think Venom 2 is the most memorable of the trilogy, because it has, even though Carnage is, like, poorly represented, I don't know. It's got character. I'm not a huge fan of the Venom movies, to be honest. As a big Spider-Man fan, not a huge fan of the Venom movies. Morbius, even though it's inaccuracies, was a fun 90s style comic book movie. It did what it did. It had a advertising marketing campaign which was very much on the verge of, like, triggering the COVID vaccine protectionists with the tagline they had, "What if the vaccine is worse than the disease?" Kind of a very cryptic but interesting sort of thing. But overall, I'm actually in a very positive place when it comes to the MCU. Thunderbolts. I had fun watching Thunderbolts, and I thought it was all right. I actually really like Joker 2, and I get a lot of shit for that, but I feel like the original Joker was a very bad imitation of a far superior, but still not great comedy from the King of Comedy. There were a lot of missed opportunities in that movie. The original King of Comedy in the original King of Comedy, the Joker character wound up kidnapping the comedian who starred in the late night show, kidnapping him with his female compatriot, which very, very, very easily could have been Harley Quinn, in order to get onto that show. The thing about the Joker that didn't really sit well with me is like the fact that, okay, yeah, the Joker was sort of a humorous, and everybody was laughing at him ironically because he wasn't funny. And that was the reason why he got a place on this late night show, because he wasn't funny, but he thought he was funny, tried to be a comedian. To me, that whole concept was ridiculous compared to the original, which is the fact that he was trying to get on the show, couldn't get on, and had to kidnap the host with his female compatriot, who could have very easily been a Harley Quinn, and he had to hold him hostage in order to get on the show, which makes a lot more sense, even as a Joker story. Anyways, that aside, Joker 2, I thought was a masterpiece. Joker 2. Hilarious in all the wrong places, which is what you expect from a dark comedy. It masterfully took the elements from the first movie and like molded them. And I know a lot of people didn't appreciate Joker 2. I actually never really was a fan of the original Joker. I thought it was sort of contrived, a very bad adaptation of a movie that was much better. Which I'm not necessarily a huge like King of Comedy fan, but I feel like that was a better film than what we got. And it could have been adapted much closer with a Harley Quinn character taking on the part. At the end of the day, the Joker in the Joker was not the Joker from the comics, and that was very obvious. He was not. He had this delusion that he was given by his mother that he was somehow related to Bruce Wayne's dad, that he was like his son or his and that was not true. That was proven not true. At the end of the original Joker, it was pretty much established that he was not the Joker. There were people inspired by him. I felt like what the Joker 2 did is it took sort of a conceit that was never really that was set up but not fully developed, which was this idea that he gets the idea that he comes into he has these fantasy moments. He has these fantasy moments whenever he's put into a position where he has to experience his past trauma. And he goes into these comedy moments where he believes like he's on a show with this comedian. It was never fully developed. In the sequel, it becomes very intrinsic to the story. These middle numbers that pop up whenever he's meant to deal with a painful moment from his past, he sort of drowns it out and goes into a musical number. Hello. which is something that it's weird because lately I found myself watching movies that are purportedly meant to be serious and finding them hilarious. Very hilarious in places that, I don't know, like I felt like Joker 2 was a hilarious comedy and it was very dark in many places, and the one thing that really got me on Joker 2 was how everyone obsessed over this idea that Joker was essayed in the jail cell, in the shower, which seemed to me like came out of left field, because it's very clear in the film that what has happened is that the Joker, who has been up to this moment pretty passive, has suddenly gone back into character. And he goes on into court and specifically says that the guards have been mistreating him, which there's no evidence that that's ever been the case. And then he gets back to the cell, and suddenly the guard, who's been very friendly, who actually introduced him to Harley, who's trying to help him get over himself, get over the Joker, which in retrospect was a mistake to introduce him to Harley Quinn, because yes, a romantic interest, but also someone who wanted him very much to be the Joker. And I think that was a miscalculation on his part. But we get to this place where the Joker, Arthur, has suddenly slipped back into being the Joker. And that is why, and he gets back to his jail, and they beat him, the guards beat him. They wipe off the makeup and they tear off the uniform, which is the symbol of his reverting back into the Joker identity. And he just lied in court. He just lied in court saying that the guards mistreated him. And that's why Arthur Fleck is beaten. He's beaten in the shower because they have to they try wiping the makeup off his face and it doesn't work. They need water. So they go into the shower in order to get wet, the napkin wet, so they can wipe the makeup off his face. They rip the Joker outfit off of his body. They don't take off his underwear. They leave everything else intact. Very specifically, they're trying to punish him for being the Joker when he wasn't supposed to be the Joker. Anyway, that's Joker 2 analysis. Fantastic Four was great. But, so anyways, Fantastic Four was great. Superman was good. I don't know how good it was. I don't know if Superman was good enough. To be honest, I don't know if Superman was good enough to pull that franchise up single-handedly out of the mire that it was in. Fantastic Four did enough. Fantastic Four did enough to reboot the Marvel Cinematic Universe. New franchise, new universe. Marvel is going to be okay, but I'm not sure if Superman. I liked it when I watched it. A lot of the complaints about Superman, Lois Lane was a bit of a biatch. Well, spoiler alert, but Lois Lane has always been a little bit of a biatch when it comes to Clark Kent, particularly. So, not a very huge departure. The other controversy around Superman was that Jor-El, they have that ending to the message where Jor-El says, oh, Kal-El, you got to start a harem and have a lot of wives and take over. Well, spoiler alert, that's actually not new to the Superman franchise. It's happened before, where the message from Jor-El has been given a sinister twist. Smallville, they implied that Jor-El had a message that was basically dominate Earth, dominate, take over. What tells you more about Superman as a character is it's not the message that Jor-El allegedly made saying, oh, take over. It's the response that Clark has to that message, which is to removes his Kryptonian parents from his highlight reel. At the end of the movie, he relaxes, and he sees his real parents, his Earth parents that took care of him and raised him. And that is symbolic. More than anything, that is symbolic of who Clark Kent and Superman is, regardless of what his Kryptonian parents might have had lined up for him. And that's the important thing. And other people have mentioned, and I think it's probably going to come full circle with. So when Lex had his compatriot go into the Fortress of Solitude and extract the message, where did the message come from? Well, historically, in Superman, there is a character that is Kryptonian that has the ability to manipulate. It's Brainiac. So if by any chance Brainiac somehow subverted that message, it would be fully 100% consistent with the Superman lore. Now, as far as, I did mention that Lois Lane has always been a bit of a biatch, like a boss bitch in the DC universe. I mean, Terry Hatcher probably did the best. Well, seriously, every actress that's portrayed Lois Lane has done that sort of boss woman, feminist, boss bitch energy. That is Lois Lane. That is who she is. And any other portrayal, the way that interview went, to me, that's quintessential Lois Lane. But it's not just that she's the boss bitch, whatever, femme, whatever. She grounds Clark. Superman is that, Superman is the Boy Scout who wants to just save the world and doesn't think about the technical restrictive complications that come with just doing whatever the F you want. And Lois brings him down to earth to say, well, what gives you the right to just dictate universal global politics on this scale, and how does it not reflect on the United States where you are? And that's important. That holds him back, makes him accountable. And honestly, in the Frank Miller Batman Returns universe, The Dark Knight, where Superman kind of goes off his rocker because he loses Lois, after his parents, but he loses that connection to humanity, and that's sort of what grounds him. So I think that's actually really good, a good part of the character to realize, his parents his parents gave him humanity. Lois Lane makes him sort of reflective and not just going Messiah complex on everything and everybody. And to me, that's a good thing. So, I mean, Superman, it's a good start. I think, quite frankly, I think the DCU has a lot of work to do. DC has a lot of work to do to get up to speed. And you know, it's funny because it's back to where Avengers level. You know, when the Avengers came out, DC felt like they had to boom, boom, boom. Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, Justice League. They had to spill it out. And the reality is, Marvel doesn't have to do that because Marvel has such a depth of characters that they can just boop, 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 boop. They can sprinkle it on and they're good. DC doesn't have that. DC has 3 or 4, maybe 5 characters they can throw in and they have to go all in. Marvel can build up with C characters, B characters, and now they're premier characters. They still don't have Spider-Man, but they're gonna have the X-Men. They have Fantastic Four, potentially the X-Men, plus all of the C characters that they already used up in the MCU. They've got a lot going for them, and honestly, I hope they can do it. Anyway, so I think I'm going to end it there. Had a good talk about Fantastic Four, Superman, yada yada yada. I got a video. It's going to be posting. I got to edit it. I'll probably do I'll probably clip the Fantastic Four interview review from this. I also have a Boise brewery crawl that I'm sort of in the middle of, and that'll post later. Thank you for watching. I know there was at least one of you. There's 2 likes. Thank you for watching. All right, have a good one. Let's see, where are we? Still live. Hold on a second. Let's see where we are. Okay, thanks everybody for watching. Whoever was spamming the N-word in the chat, I deleted your posts. So thank you for watching. I'm sure you were a bot, but oh, we got at least one person watching. Anyway, those are my thoughts on Fantastic Four, Superman, Joker 2, whatever else that you didn't care about. I didn't get into politics because we could have a whole stream just on that. But I think we're good. All right, so see y'all later. Have a good one. Thank you.